Okay. Oh. Karibu, we're just starting. Now you can mute your mics. We begin. So writing, we're going to work on ties, writing ties, dotted knots, and grouping dotted knots. So before that, let us look at some terms. We learned some new terms and signs for this lesson. We have been learning a number of terms and signs during the previous lesson so that we get to learn as we go on. So let's look at these words. They are Italian terms. Allegro means quick. Allegro. Anytime you hear allegro, that means quick. Allegretto is a version, another word from the word allegro, and it means fairly quick. Allegretto, fairly quick. And then we have moderato, inamaanisha at a moderate speed. In case you forget, just remember moderato. It looks like the word moderate. And then we have andante, at a medium speed. Andante at a walking speed or with medium speed. So if you write walking speed or medium speed, that is okay. Adagio means slow, or adagio. It means slow. Accelerando, gradually getting quicker. In case you forget accelerando, it looks like accelerate. I think it's from the word we got the accelerate English word. We have a lot of Italian terms that made our English words. So accelerando, it means getting gradually quicker. Rallentando means gradually getting slower. It's the opposite of accelerando. So if a song is going quick, then it's gradually, not very suddenly, just gradually start getting slower. That is rallentando. And the other word also that means the same is retardando, gradually getting slower. And then when you get these directions, you will most likely find a tempo. A tempo means in time. So after slowing down maybe, or accelerating, or even going slow, you may be told now, come back to the original speed that you are singing in or playing in. That is what a tempo mean. In time, resume the original speed. This term, I'll give you a link to a game that we'll be playing so that you get to learn these terms quickly. So the third part of rhythm, we are going to learn about ties and dotted knots. And a tie looks like this. It's a musical symbol that consists of a curved line. It connects two notes of the same pitch. And if the notes stems are facing down, the tie will be above the knot. If the stems are facing up, the tie will be below the knot. The other way to think about it is to always remember that a tie joins two knots by connecting their heads together. The tie will always go on the heads and not on the stems. Now, what does a tie do? The knots joined by a tie are played as one knot, lasting the length of the tied knots added together. So these knots that are tied together, you play or sing the value of both knots. You add them together and play them like one number, like one note. So think about it like math. You add two values. If a minim, for example, is 2 counts, you add another minim 2 counts. Instead of singing 2 and then 2, join them together and then you sing 4 counts, as you are going to see in our examples. For example, 2 minims joined together, as shown below, will be played like a semibrieve. So these 2 minims, when tied together, there'll be no difference on how you'll sing this and how you'll sing a semibrieve. So a tie, in case you forget the meaning of a tie, imagine 2 ropes tied together. They become one rope. They work like one rope. They are connected. So why would you use a tie? Ties are used to join together knots across a bar line. Remember, a bar line is strictly supposed to have the number of bits determined by the time signature. So if the tie, if the last note of the bar, you want it to be played like a minim, but it doesn't fit a minim, like in this case, you can tie that crochet to another crochet, and that will make a minim. That will make a minim. When you tie this crochet, remember you couldn't write a minim here because the bar is already complete. So if you tie it to another crochet on the next bar, then just it sounds, if you play it or sing it, it will sound like a minim. So in this case, there'll be a minim here, a crochet, and then another minim, and then another minim, and then a crochet. But now this minim is crossing the bars using a tie. I hope that makes sense. So, and then the other way you would use a tie is to cross the middle of a 4/4 bar. Like in this case, a 4/4 bar has some cases that we will look at later. It has some things we need to know about them, but for now, imagine that there is usually an invisible or a weak bar line between the 4/4, between the two beats in a 4/4 bar. So the first two beats and the last two beats are usually treated in a special way, in that we need to see or hear the strength of the third beat, and even to see it as it comes in. So we need to tie sometimes within the bar, although it's not normal to tie within a bar in a simple time, but in this case you may find in quadruple time, that is 4/4 time, a tie within a bar crossing the second to the third beat. So so adding tied knot values together, we know that for now in grade 1 our beat is a crochet. Our beat is the crochet. I don't know if people saw the link that I shared in the group. So this is we are talking about crochet beats in grade 1, and so what is the total number of crochet beats for each of the following tied knots? Let's look at these tied knots. To know a knot that is tied, you will notice that they are the same knot and there is this curved line. So let me ask as a question, how many beats do you think the ties will make? If a beat is a crochet,
three.
This will make 3 beats. So a crochet is 1 count, a minim is 2 counts. When a crochet is set to a minim, that makes 1 plus 2, which is equal 3. What about this one? What is the total number of crochet beats for each of the following tied knots?
Should I say 2?
Not really.
So it's 1.5.
This is 1.5. This is 1.5 beats.
Okay, so it is only linking these two, the ones that are joining each other.
Only the knots that are tied to each other can add up to the total value of that tie. And then, so that is 1 plus a quiver. If you include the other quiver, that will be wrong because it's not in the tie. You're going to see how 3 knots are tied together. How we tie 3 knots together. Because a tie, as we said, the only way to recognize a tie is that the knots should be next to each other. Next to each other. So let's look at the next one. How many beats will this add up to? That will add up to 1 beat. You're right. This is 1 beat, and then we have, that is a half plus a half, which makes 1. And then we have this. How many beats? This is 4. You're right. So again, you may be asked, to show another knot that will be played in the same value as tied knots. So like in this case, which one knot will show the total value of the tied knots below. So these are two minims tied together. This will sound like which single knot? Yeah, it will sound like a semi-brief. That's correct. What about this one? A minim, because the two crochets make a minim. That one? Crochet. And what about this one? This is a crochet. Take note of how these knots are tied together. When you tie more than two knots, you don't cross the tie over the knots. You don't leave something between. Otherwise, if you do that, that will be a different thing that you're going to learn later called a slur. But when you want to tie more than two knots, then you tie to the first one to the second, and then tie it to the third. Imagine you're tying ropes. When you want to tie 3 or 4 ropes, you don't tie the first one to the last one. Otherwise, you will leave the other 2 ropes between. You tie one to the second and then tie to the second to the third to make a long rope. That's the same way you think about a tie. What about that one? Yeah, this will add up to a semi-brief. And again, take notice of how more than 2 knots are tied. And I think this will be the last one. This should add up to a quiver. These are 2 semiquavers and they'll add up to a quiver. So let's look at dotted knots. Joining knots with a tie is sometimes not appropriate. We have just looked at ties, and it's not always appropriate to use ties. I've already shown you the 2 situations where we need to use a tie, and that is when we are crossing from one bar to the other, or crossing the middle part of a 4/4 time signature. But it's not always appropriate to use ties, and it's only in those special situations that we use ties. So when a knot is joined to another knot that is half of its value, there is another way of notating it instead of using a tie. I'll repeat that. When a knot, like a crochet, is joined to another knot that is half of its value, like a quiver, or a minim is joined to a crochet that is half its value, there's another way of notating that. Instead of joining a crochet and a quiver as shown below, look at this scenario where you are tying a crochet to a quiver. A quiver is a half of a crochet. Or joining together a quiver to a crochet, and again a quiver is a half of a crochet. Instead of doing something like this, the knot should be notated like this. You add a dot to the crochet, and that is it. So this dot means add to me half of my value. If a knot has a dot, it means to it add half of its value. So instead of joining a minim and a crochet like this, a minim joined to a crochet, or a crochet joined to a minim, as long as one of them is the half of the other, then the half is the dot. You just write a dotted knot, a dotted minim in this case. And again, we have here a quiver tied to a semiquaver, and that should be joined together like as shown in the right side as a dotted quiver. Now, I want you to look at this. These are 4 bars, and see if you can spot a bar that is not complete, and then think about where to add which of the knots in that bar to give a dot so that the bar will be complete. So I don't know if Anne has followed. If you can you know what we are talking about. If you're still trying to connect, you can just tell me to continue engaging, Michael. Morning to you. So have you understood what ties are? Okay, and what about dot, the logic of dots, dotted knots? Mm-hmm. Okay, so yes, so look at these bars. Can you spot a bar that is not complete? The third bar. Are you able to find a knot that you will give a dot and then the bar will be complete in that bar? Which one? Mm-hmm. Uh, so it's the crochet that will be dotted. Are we going to dot the crochet or to dot the minim? Uh-huh. Yes. Okay. Exactly. So in this case, that is the bar that is not complete, as you said. You're right. And there are 3 beats. If we add a dot to the minim, we will get a dotted minim, which is equivalent to 3 crochet beats. And if we add the crochet that comes after, the bar will be complete. That's correct. So this is the correct way to notate that. See if you can tackle this. Look at the bars and tell me which one is incomplete. The second bar, what is it lacking? Mm-hmm. Not really a semiquaver. A quiver. You're right. So what do we need to dot to get a quiver? If you dot a minim, that dot will be equivalent to half of a minim, which will be a crochet. But we need a quiver, not a crochet. And we don't even have a minim in this bar to dot. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. A quiver. A semiquaver has got 2 flags. We cannot add a dot to. Mm-hmm. I'm not getting you. Are you getting internet problems, connection problem? Two? Yeah, they can be given dots, but now we don't have semiquavers here. We don't have even a single semiquaver. So you said we need a quiver to make this bar complete. A quiver is a half of what? So we need to dot a crochet so that the dot will be a quiver. Is that right? Yeah, so which crochet are we going to dot? Is it the first one here or the last one? Because we have two crochets. The final one. So if we do that, it means our first bit will be this crochet, and then our second bit will be this quiver and another quiver that is beamed to another. That will make it irregular. That will not be correct grouping. So this is the bar as you said. Consider grouping. When you group, we need to be able to see the beats. The last bit is okay as a crochet, and you can see the previous bit is also grouped together, two quivers. So this quiver is the one that will be grouped with the dot to make a bit. And that is why the dot will be given to the first crochet here. All right. So Michael, if you're still around, kindly see if you can spot where we need a dot here. That bar, what do we give a dot? Yeah, we dot the crochets. We dot the crochet, the first crochet. Okay, so that is it, and you can see how the beats are grouped. You can see the crochet is one beat, its dot and the other quiver make another beat, and then the other crochet to make a beat. Remember, we always group knots to make beats. Now, Michael, again, this one, we have two bars that are not complete. See if you can spot them. The second one, you're right. Mm-hmm. Mm. Yes, yes, yes. Because what we need is a semiquaver to make the bar complete. Is that right? Yes, correct. So because the first bit is already complete, if you interfere with it, will interfere with grouping. So you put a dot in the middle of the second bit. That is after the quiver, correct? What about another bar that is not complete? The fourth one. And where will you put the dot? After the first crochet. That's correct. So this is how it will look like. And Mukundi, are you following? Umepata hiyo? Do you have a question there? Okay, so look at the following time. Thank you so much. The following knots are arranged according to their length. A semi-brief has 4 counts, and now we have a knot that has 3 counts, a dotted minim. 4, 3, 2 is a minim. 1.5, a dotted crochet. 1 is a crochet, and then a dotted quiver is 3/4 of a beat, and then a quiver is a half of a beat, and then we will have a dotted semiquiver, which will be some other fractions there that are going to be very mathematical, but this is how they are arranged. So we learned earlier that quavers and semiquavers are beamed together so that they are grouped into bits. So this is how you will see notes beamed together to make bits. When you have a quaver joined, a quaver and a semiquaver, a dotted quaver and a semiquaver that together make one bit, then they are usually beamed as you see here. Even if it's I was supposed to add an image here that a semiquaver joined to a dotted quaver. It should be the vice versa, but I think I missed that. And the same is true for dotted notes. Whenever you have dotted notes that can be grouped into bits, then you can group them together. So this bar here is correctly grouped. Look at how the bits are seen clearly. This is a quaver and a dot. So this dot is equal to a semiquaver. If you add to this semiquaver, that is after 8, it's another quaver. So a quaver, that is the dot and the semiquaver, added to a quaver inakuwa crochet. It becomes a crochet. So the same thing with the second bit and the third bit. So this is another one. So I want Mukundi to tell me if this is grouped correctly. Do you think it's grouped correctly? Look at it and see if you can clearly see each bit. Yes, it's very correctly grouped. What about that one? So where does the first bit end? Remember, grouping is different. Grouping is different from being a complete bar. It can be a complete bar but not well grouped. So where does the first bit end? And is that second note grouped with the first one, or is it grouped with the second bit? Which means it's wrong. Because this semiquaver should be grouped with the dotted quaver to show that it is one bit. The beaming shows the grouping. So it is showing affiliation to a different bit, which is wrong. That is what we mean by grouping and beaming. So the beaming shows how the notes are grouped. So this is an illoyal note. It's not loyal. It's grouped to the second bit instead of being grouped to the first bit in the first bit, which is part of the first bit, not second bit. So this is how they see. You see how when you bring out the bits, you cut through these, and you can see that it is leaning inaenda kwa jirani. It's peeping at the neighbor's window. So this is wrong. It's not correct grouping. So look at the following rhythm and see how they should be grouped. This brings another thing that we are going to look at later. When in a 4/4 time quadruple time, and you have 4 quavers following each other making the first half of the bar, they should be joined together. You should use one beam. Although this is more than one bit, it's very okay for quadruple time. Quadruple time means 4/4. 4 bits in a bar. So if it is 4/4, you don't have to separate the quaver, 2 quavers and then another 2 quavers. If you join them this way, it's perfectly okay. And then the other one, as we have seen earlier, they are well grouped. And that is, you can notice how easy it is to look at this in the bottom than to look at the other one on top. The hanging flags make it look very complicated, and finding the bits is fairly difficult, but when they are grouped, it's very clear. You can clearly see each bit. And that is the purpose of grouping. Okay, so let's look at scales. The scale of C major, we're going to look at the scale of C major, the degrees of the scale, and then we'll look at tones and semitones in scales. So in grade 1, we're going to learn 4 scales, but today we're going to look at one of them. A scale is a ladder of notes that move in step. I'm going to show you in a moment. And it can go up or it can come down. The spelling of descending is wrong, should be ending with a G. So it can be ascending, going up, or descending, coming down. That is a scale. In grade 1, we'll look at C major. We're going to look at G major, D major, and F major. First thing you need to know about scales is that a scale has got specific notes. So in a C major scale, for example, the scale will start from C and it will end with C. That's a C major scale. It has to end with C and it has to start with C. And C major, as we're going to see later, it has got no accidentals. And then we have G major. G major, of course, it will start with G and it ends with G. And G major has got one sharp. Remember last time we looked at accidentals. And that's why I was saying we need to understand accidentals before we come to the next lesson. A G major scale has got one sharp on F. F, yani when you're doing a scale of G major, you'll write G to G, and then F will be raised. Remember the first lesson we looked at the notes on the staff, and we said when you have the notes on the staff, you start with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then come back to A. So it is, for the scale of G will be G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. It has one sharp. C has got no sharps at all. G has one sharp. And then we have D major. D major, it has to start with D and it has to end with D. And it has two sharps. The spelling of sharps here is not correct. I'll rectify it. It has two sharps on C, F and C. So when you are saying the scale of D major, you will say D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. It has two sharps. We're going to look at them. And then we have F major. And F major starts and ends with an F. And it has got one flat. This is the only flat key we are going to look at in grade 1. It has one flat, and that one flat is on B. So when you say the scale of F major, you will say F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. So let's look at the scales. The scale of a key contains all the notes that belong in that key, as I was mentioning earlier. So the scale of C major has got no sharps or flats, as we said earlier. And the following is C major scale ascending. Now, if you look at it visually, the notes are going up. That's what we mean by ascending. This is the treble clef, and this is the bass clef. This is the same scale of C major, and it's C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. As we said, there is no sharp, and there is no flat. It just goes up like that. And the letters are natural. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Notice that we are starting from the middle C for G clef so that we don't go high above the staff. And then the bass clef, we are starting from the C, second space, to the middle line, the ledger line of middle C. This is, every note has a single letter. And when you're dealing with scales, you will come to notice that all the notes are only mentioned once. You cannot mention a note twice. And this is the descending, again on both clefs, the C major scale descending. So when we are descending, the letters will not be C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. It will go backward because we are starting from up, going downward. So it is C, B, A, G, F, E, D, and C. That is descending scale. It is coming from the top down. And then this is another scale, but now on the bass clef, using the same notes, but now the order is different. It is descending from C to B to A, G, F, E, D, and C. That is the descending major scale of C major. Any question after that point concerning the C major scale? Mokundi, are you together? Okay, let's move on. So let's look at the degrees of the scale. The notes in a scale are known as degrees. All these notes that you have seen them, each one of them is a degree. Degree, don't forget this term. All these notes are degrees. So the first and the last notes of the scale, whether ascending or descending, are the same. C to C, G to G, F to F, the first and the last note are the same, whether they are ascending or descending. And those two notes, the first and the last notes, are the most important because they define the scale. They define the scale. So if the scale is C, then you start from C and end with C. If the scale is for G, you start with G and end with G. So all the degrees in a scale are numbered in relation to the tonic. Now the tonic is the most important note, and we can also call it the key note. Key note. So if you're in the scale of C, C is the key note. If you're in the scale of G, G is the key note. And you have to start with the key note and end with the key note. We can also call it the tonic. All the degrees in a scale are numbered in relation to the tonic. So the tonic is usually the first and the 8th degree, and all the others are named in relation to it. So when descending, the degrees are usually counted backwards, like 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So look at the following. This is degrees of the scale. We have the scale that we had written earlier. And in this case, we have tonic as the first one and the last note. You can see the first and the 8th are tonic because they are both C, and this is a C major scale. So from the first tonic, that is the lowest tonic where we start, you go to the second, which is D, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 7th, and then back to tonic. So this is a C major ascending on a treble clef, and these are the degrees of the scale. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 7th, and 8th. So if you're asked, what is the 6th degree of C major? Anne Mokudi, what will be your answer? What is the 6th degree of C major? A. You're right. That is everything you need to know about this. And this is the bass clef, and it's the same thing. Degrees of the scale. So let us see if Anne Mukundi, you can answer this. In the following pairs of notes, the first is the tonic. Can you find the degree of the second note? Tell me the degree of the second note here in the first staff. Now the answer should be first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 7th, or 8th. So tell me the degree of the second note in the following pair. The first pair of notes, you can see, we said in the following pair of notes, the first is the tonic. Can you find the degree of the second note? Okay, that's a good question, and we need to address it. Usually, when you are asked to find the interval, the second note is usually the one that is higher. Even if the order is vice versa, like you have the higher and then the lower, you start counting from the low to the high. Always count your interval from the low to high. So, but in this case, you have been given the following pair of notes, and the first is the tonic. So the first is the one that comes closest to the clef, because we read music from left to right. So the first note is this one, C, and we said the first is the tonic, and this is C. So what is the degree of the second note? Yes, but we don't need to know the letter name, we just need to know the number. What is the degree? Is it second, third, fourth, fifth, seventh? How did you reach to the seventh? Do you remember the question I asked you in the previous slide? What is the sixth degree of the C major? And you said it's A. So how do you reach to the A? You start from C, C as your 1, D as your second, E as your third, F as your fourth, G as your fifth, and then A as your sixth. So you count everything. You count the space, line, space, line, space, line. So we will count like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you find your sixth is A. So in this case, you are not given all the notes below, but you're expected to count the same way and reach to that second note and say which degree it is. Uh-huh. Yes, that is the tonic. This is the fifth degree. You are right. What about the next one? Sixth degree. The next one. I'll give you a tip. Every degree that is like if you look at a note and the other and you want to find out the second degree, the degree of the other notes, if they are both on the line, it cannot be an even number. Can you count well? Yes, this is a seventh degree. I hope we are together with Michael. Anthony Amerudi. Michael. So Michael, see if you can find the interval. Michael, I can't hear you. So the degree of the last one here. Sorry. Fourth degree. This is the fourth degree. The last note is a second note is a fourth degree. What about this one? This is the eighth degree. Anthony, are you following? Are you able to answer the last two? Ama hujashikanisha bado kitu tunafanya? Ama hata alishaenda? No. Okay, so Anthony ni kama simpati. Ni network kama aunipati? Oh yeah. So this is what is the degree of this second note? The first one is the one that comes closest to the clef. So this is C, and we say the first is a tonic. So find the degree of the second note. This is the third degree. And then we have the last one here at the bottom. This is a second, you're right. So let us look at tones and semitones in scales as we complete today's lesson. The tones and semitones, we looked at them in great depth in the previous lesson. And I showed you how to draw a piano and how to look at tones and semitones on the piano. And I still insist that the first thing to do when you get to the exam room will be to draw a piano. So get to learn, go to YouTube and search how to draw a simple piano diagram, not a real piano, just a piano keys, how to draw piano keys, and then learn, because you'll need to use it a lot. So this is the tonic second or first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh, and eighth, as we saw earlier. And these are the letters that we saw earlier. But what we want now to see is where we have semitones in our scales. So this is C major scale. And you will agree with me that last time we looked at the piano diagram and we noticed that from E to F, there was no black key between. So that was a semitone. And then B to C, again, there was no black key between them. That was a semitone. Remember, the C major scale has got only white keys. No sharps, no flats. So, that is on the piano. So this is it. C to D is a tone, D to E is a tone, E to F is a semitone, F to G is a tone, G to A is a tone, A to B is a tone, and then B to C as a semitone. So we have tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. That is two tones, semitone, three tones, and a semitone. So when you look at it, we only have two semitone distances between the members of the scale. So the distance between each note in a major scale is either a tone or a semitone. And in every major scale, no matter the key, be it G or F or D or C, the pattern of notes, tones and semitones is usually the same. Two tones and a semitone, three tones and then a semitone. The distance between the third and fourth degrees, as we saw here, third and fourth degrees, don't forget that, third and fourth degree, you will get it in the test, and the seventh and eighth degree, third, fourth, seventh, and eighth is a semitone. And then the distance between all the other consecutive degrees is a tone. So always remember 3 to 4, 7 to 8, the third to the fourth, the seventh to the eighth are semitones. And the rest are tones. Here is it aligned with the piano figure. At the top here we have the degrees: first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth. And these are the notes: C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, as we saw earlier. But now when you look at it from the piano, you can clearly see how from C to D is a tone. You can see a black key between. You go up to the black key down to D, that's a tone. Up to the black key down to the E, that's a tone. E to F is a semitone. There is no black key between. And then F to G, you can see the tone. G to A, you can see the tone. And then A to B, you can also see the tone. And then now B to C again is a semitone. So you will need to draw this piano diagram very often. You need to learn how to draw the piano and then be able to tell when you have a semitone and when you have a tone. So these are the degrees at the top, and then we have the notes, and then we have the distance. The distance we will also learn later. They are called intervals. You'll hear me interchange the word distance and interval. So any question this far? So let's see if we can learn something from the diagram, the piano diagram. So Anne Mokundi, kindly unmute. I want to ask you a few questions. So Anne, what is the interval from D to E? Okay. And where will you go if you want to have a tone from E flat? From E flat, go up one tone. What will be the note that you will land on? Mm-hmm. Can you find E sharp on the piano? Because a sharp or a flat, for now, we just need to know it's a black key. So that now that we don't have a black key called E sharp, where will you land? That was right. You are right by saying E sharp, but for grade 1, we may not really use it for now. But what will be the name of E sharp? Where will you land? Because it has its own name. Just move 2 steps from E flat and you will land on a tone high. Okay, so from E flat to A sharp you will have gone 3 steps, not 2. So E flat to E, 1 step. Another step you will land on F. Yes. So a tone from E flat higher, a tone higher is F, down to E and then forward to F. Because E to F is a semitone and E flat to E is a semitone, and a tone is made of 2 semitones. Does that make sense? Now tell me a tone higher than E. Two steps up from E. Just try, because I know that is where you had weakness in the previous lesson. I want to help you. From E, you see E, 2 steps up, like a tone higher, 1 tone higher. Same way we tackled from E flat to F. Now from E, where will your tone land? Just don't skip anything. Just go 1 step, 2 steps. Don't skip even a black key. We don't have E sharp now because from E we go straight to F. There is no black key between E and F. So when you're coming from E, how do you go a step forward? You can even see on the staff above, but we want to look at the piano because there are some sharps here that are not, you cannot see them on the staff. But look at E, when you go 1 step forward, where do you go to? And then another 1 step forward, where will you go to? Exactly, so that F sharp is 1 tone from E. Is it making sense? Uh-huh. But have you got the idea? Moving step. So tell me how you will go 1 step, 1 tone from B flat. B flat. Just move 1 step, 2 steps, and tell me where you land. Just say the name of the note where you land. Yes, exactly. 1 tone will come to C. What about from F sharp? 1 tone. From F sharp, the black key after F. not one semitone, one tone. That is 2 steps, 2 centimeters, 1 tone. Yes. Going up 2 steps. So from F sharp, if you go 1 step, where are you? And then from, yes, that's now 1 tone. F sharp to G sharp is a tone. Is it making sense? Just moving 2 steps, nothing difficult to memorize. Just moving 2 steps and you'll have found your tone. And that is it for today. I think we have learned some few stuff, and we have learned the beginning part of the scale. Next time we will look at the F sharp, and I mean the scale of G major, the scale of D major, and the scale of G major, D major, and F major. And then from there we will look at some other topics. Let me see the next topics. After that, we will come to keys and key signatures, and then I think the last lesson we will do intervals and tonic triads, because we will have completed the terms and signs. So take note of today's terms and signs. Don't forget them. You're going to have 2 quizzes this week. The first quiz will be on terms and signs, and the second quiz will be the terms and signs that we have learned so far, and the second quiz will be on the lesson that we learned today. So make sure you finish before Sunday, and thank you for attending today's lesson. If there is any question, you may ask. If not, then we are free to end the lesson from at this point.